Hi guys, welcome back. So I'm starting a new series on the how-tos of basic astrology to teach people how to read their own natal chart and other people's charts if you want. So I'm going to start with the basics today on how to generate a natal chart and what you're looking for when you generate one. So we're going to go over what the different tropical zodiac versus sidereal zodiac and the different types of astrology that you're looking at. We're going to go over what the circular chart is, what you're looking at when you look at one, and all that good stuff. So let's get started. Okay, so I use astro.com, which is Astrodienst. I've been using this since I first had internet connection as a teenager. This is free, and I'm sure there's plenty of sites that will generate a natal chart. This is just the one that I've always used, so we're going to use it today. So I already have an account, and again, they're free. So I'm going over to my Astro here, and my chart is the first one up because the first one always stays at the top. So I'm going to click on it, and I always go to extended chart selection. You can go to a chart drawing ascendant for quick access, but I just like going here. Now I just want to show you, if you were to add a new person, this is what you would need. So you would need a name, you can put a gender or not, you need date of birth, time of birth, and location of birth. So you can just put in, like, I was born in Pleasantville, New York. So it would just come up. You see, the first one would be it. So that's what you would need if you were generating a whole brand new chart. Mine is already in here, so we're just going to go with that. Now there's this whole drop down here, and it's got all these different types of charts you can look at. So for now, we're just doing natal chart. And so the default house system is also known as Placidus. And I'm going to show you that for a second. I changed mine to whole signs house system because I prefer it, and I'll explain why in a bit. And I use sidereal zodiac a lot, so that's why it's my default, but we're going to click on tropical so you guys can see a typical Western astrology chart. Okay, so this is my chart in Western astrology. This is what a typical circular chart looks like. For Western astrology, you're always going to see a circular chart, so it looks like a wheel. And in Vedic astrology, it looks like a box, so it's a square chart. This is what Vedic astrology charts look like. They're square, and the houses go in a different order. Houses are numbered here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these go around the circle, which starts here at what's called the ascendant or the rising sign. You have to have time of birth for this reason. It sets up all of the houses. If you didn't have time of birth, there would be no houses. It would just start at 0 degrees Aries, and you would have no way of knowing what your rising sign is or your ascendant, which again is this right here. In Placidus house system, the ascendant is the start of the first house. I don't use this house system, so I'm not going to be staying on this chart. I'm going to be changing it back to whole signs, and let me explain why. There's no actual good, valid reason as to why people use Placidus commonly as the default in Western astrology. Back in the 60s and 70s, before the internet was out, Placidus happened to be the most widely distributed house system charts. That's the only reason it's used, and it's really cumbersome. It gives you these things called interceptions. So it's commonly believed in practitioners of Western astrology, which I used to be, that an intercepted planet is not able to fully express itself openly. It has to be sort of unzipped or unlocked. I don't subscribe to this anymore because I don't use this house system. I use a much more ancient and very simple one. So I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so this is my Western chart in whole signs house system. So as you can see, things are very perfectly lined up. My whole first house is encompassed by Pisces, which is my rising in Western astrology. So the ascendant is no longer the cusp of the first house. It is actually the whole first house. It's just all Pisces. Aries is here, Taurus is here, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. That's the whole zodiac. On astro.com, they have this little grid here, so they don't tell you what the glyphs for the zodiac are. You just kind of have to know those, and you can easily look them up online. But it does tell you what the glyphs of the planets are. So you can see Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Even though the sun and the moon and Pluto are not planets, in astrology they just call them that for simplification. Things that are not planets are the angles. So the angles are the ascendant, rising right here. Opposite the ascendant is here, the descendant. It's not marked here, but I'll just tell you that that's what it's called. Then you've got the midheaven in Western astrology. Across from the midheaven, 180 degrees away, is called the Imam Coeli, or the IC. Then we've got the nodes of the moon. This is the north node of the moon, and then opposite is the south node of the moon. Now, all of the planets represent a type of energy. So they're kind of scattered all over the wheel, right? This is Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars in my chart. It's very convenient because they're all right here in the sign of Aries. And then the moon is over here in Leo. And then we've got Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all in Libra. We've got Uranus in Scorpio, and we've got Neptune next to the midheaven here in Sagittarius. Each of the planets have their own energy. So the sun represents the ego, the moon represents the inner needs and emotions, Mercury represents logic and thinking, Venus represents giving and receiving love, Mars is like our inner caveman, so it's how we take action, assert ourselves, it's our sexuality. Then we have the outer planets, and those are slower moving because they're further away from the sun. So everyone in your graduating year had the same Jupiter. The farther out from the sun you go, the longer they stay in that sign. So Jupiter is our expansion area, our area of luck and growth. Saturn is our area of limitations, restrictions, and learning things the hard way. Uranus is where we tend to shake things up. Neptune is the planet of illusion. And Pluto is the planet of transformation. So you can think of the planets like actors. The sign that the planet is in represents the character that that actor is playing, let's say in a movie. So the sign that a planet is in is describing how it is expressed. Then you have the houses. So the houses describe the setting of the movie. They are where that planet's energy is going to express itself in your life. So each house represents a different life area. The first house represents general body and health and your overall personality. It's really important because the ascendant or the rising sign is here, and the rising sign represents how you approach life. It's most of what your personality consists of, so it's an exceptionally important part of the natal chart. The second house represents money, so personal assets. In modern astrology, it also represents your self-worth. The third house represents communication. It also represents siblings and the immediate environment. The fourth house represents your home and family. The fifth house represents children and creative pursuits and lovers, so people that aren't in a committed relationship with you. The sixth house represents your personal habits and your daily routines. So it represents the vocation you have, not necessarily your career, but your daily job. And it also represents health. The seventh house is legal partnerships, so marriage and business partnerships. The eighth house represents your in-laws. It represents the assets you share with a partner or with the government, like taxes, assets you share with a financial institution, like loans. It shows inheritances. The ninth house represents your belief systems. So this is the house of higher education, religion, not necessarily spirituality in the true sense of spirituality, but it shows your pursuits in that area. And it shows foreign travel. The 10th house shows your career. So this is the angle of the midheaven. The midheaven represents the pinnacle of everything that a human can accomplish in this worldly incarnation. So that tends to mean your overall reputation in the community or on social media in this case, and it represents your overall profession. The 11th house is the house of friends, acquaintances. It's also considered the lucky house. We see any organizations that a person is involved in, any humanitarian pursuits as well. The 12th house is kind of like the blind spot of a person's natal chart. So this is the things about yourself you can't see that perhaps other people can. It represents the subconscious. That's really why. The 12th house actually shows real spirituality in the sense of the dissolution of the ego and the personality construct, because it's the final house. Maybe institutionalizations that you have. So if you have to go into the hospital, if you have to go into prison, mental health facility, can show psychic and intuitive powers that you have. So reading a natal chart is pretty simple. Once you understand what all the glyphs are and you can read, the signs, the houses, and the planets, it's really just about putting it all together. We're not going to go over aspects in this video, but aspects generally show how planets kind of alter each other's energy. So for example, you can see that my Sun, Venus, and Mars right here in second house Aries are all together in a bunch. So that means they function as one unit. However, they're all opposing the planet Pluto, so that alters that unit. Okay, so this is my chart in sidereal. And I wanted you guys to see this because this is the one I actually identify with really and use. And so in this one, my ascendant has gone to Aquarius. I have Sun, Mars, and Mercury in Pisces. So if we were to read this, for example, we would look at my Sun and we would say, okay, that's the masculine ego identity and the career. So in Pisces, that would put me in a career a lot like the one that I have. I'm a spiritual mentor, so sign of Pisces, it's the final sign of the zodiac. It's also creative and artistic, so I have creative pursuits in that I like to do YouTube. And in the second house, that's a very routine type of house. So I used to deal with other people's money. I used to be a loan officer, and I used to literally handle money and work with money. Because Pisces is a very psychic sign and one that deals with spirituality and metaphysics, it makes sense that I would be an astrologer as well. I'm not going to read my whole chart for you guys because it's just embarrassing, but this is how you read a chart. You take the planet, you add it into a sign, so that again is the character that the actor is playing, and then you put it into placement, so that is the house. This is after I recorded the video, but I realized I forgot to explain to you guys what the difference is between the tropical western zodiac and then the sidereal zodiac that I end up using at the end of the video. So the only difference is that tropical is where the zodiac started out thousands of years ago. So on March 21st, which is the spring equinox, Aries used to be at 0 degrees on the horizon. So that's why we start at Aries in spring. So that's tropical. It's just based on that. It never changes. Sidereal is based on where the actual constellations are now. They've shifted about 24 degrees. The reason it shifts is just because it's something called the precession of the equinox. It's a normal thing. It's just like something that the Earth slowly rotates, and that's why the constellations are slightly off. But that's why my chart, and your chart probably, is different in the Western tropical zodiac. And then when I switched to sidereal zodiac, it went from Aries to Pisces, a lot of the planets, and my moon went from Leo to Cancer. So that's why that happens. I just wanted to add this in there so you guys understand the difference. And personally, I've always used tropical zodiac because I studied Western astrology my whole life, but recently I've been studying sidereal, which is why that was my default, and I have found it to be a lot more accurate for me personally and for other people. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and it gives you an understanding of how to read an actual natal chart. And remember, you need your date, time, and location of birth in order to generate a proper natal chart. Bye!